Hello and welcome to your entry-level functional skills English class for the week commencing the 21st of September. So this week we're going to look at a couple of different things, but there is a big focus this week on spelling and spelling strategies. So we started to look at homophones last week. Homophones are those lovely words that sound the same when we say them out loud. They are often spelt very similarly, but they actually have completely different meanings. So if you didn't get a look at those, I would go back to last week's work and have a little look at the homophones video and activities just to get you refreshed on those. So as I say, this week we're going to start off with, this is our starter. So grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down as many words as you can spell. Okay, so think of as many words as you can using the letters in the words English language. So you can only use the letters that are in those two words. You can't add in any extras. You can use, if for instance, there are three G's in there. If you come up with a word that's got three G's in, brilliant, you can use them. But if it had four G's in, you couldn't, because there were only three in the words English language. So if you want to just pause the video there, feel free and have a go at the activity, but you can carry on through the video if you want to. So that is our starter for this week. So the plan for this week, the things that we are going to cover and focus on. First of all, we're going to talk about different strategies and we're going to talk about different tips and hints to help you with your spelling. You have got a writing task to complete as well, and I would like you to apply those spelling strategies when you are doing your piece of writing. So really thinking about and proofreading your work for your spelling this week and to get ourselves into good habits. And last but not least, there is a little reading practice task for you as well, where you get to look at the different types of reading questions that you might encounter in an entry-level reading exam. So that is the plan for this week. So before we begin and get too sort of technical with the spelling side of things, what you need to remember about sort of dealing with letters and the alphabet, which letters are vowels and which letters are consonants. So when I say a vowel, I mean A, E, I, O, U. When I say the word consonant, we're talking about all the other letters that are in the alphabet. So anything that is not A, E, I, O, U. So all the letters that you can see there are what we would call consonants. So we need to bear that in mind. We need to remember what we mean by vowel and consonants when we look at some of the strategies that we're going to talk about today. So the big focus at first, we're going to talk about something called plurals. So when we have a thing, an object, or one of something, we would call it a singular. So one single thing on its own, such as a car, a tree, a house. But when we want to talk about more than one of those things, we call that a plural. Plural spelling is really, really important for you, not only in your writing, but also as part of your assessment, you will get tested on your ability to turn a singular word into a plural word. So you do need to know some of these common patterns that we would come across. So for instance, a rule that we can follow, if the word, when it's a single version, a singular version, if it ends in a hissing sound, what we do, we add es to it to make it a plural, such as glass becomes glasses, church becomes churches, dish becomes dishes, and box becomes boxes. So even though they all end in slightly different letter combinations at the end of those words, the s, sh, sh, x sounds all can be classed as hissing sounds, in which case we would add ES. If the word that we are looking at, when it's in its singular version, ends in an F or an FE, what we would do is get rid of the F or FE, we'd take it away from the word, and we would add VES on the end, such as half becomes halves, wife becomes wives. If the word that we are looking at ends in a consonant Y, such as TY, LY, SY, or BY, what we do, we get rid of the Y at the end, the Y sound at the end, and add IES. So for example, one baby, if we change that to more than one, becomes babies. Rally becomes rallies. If it's slightly different at the end, and it ends in a vowel Y, such as EY, AY, OY, or UY, we simply add an S. So donkey becomes donkeys, valley becomes valleys. Sometimes there are simply some odd ones that just do not follow the rules. So for example, the whole word might change. Child becomes children, man becomes men, person becomes people. And then, just to make things even more confusing, there are sometimes times where the word will stay the same. These are often animals that we're talking about. So sheep, one sheep, a group of sheep or a flock of sheep, one fish, many fish, a deer, lots of deer, they stay the same. To be fair, if the plural does not follow any of these patterns that we've already discussed, we tend to just add S. So words such as car, flower, toilet, or shop become cars, flowers, toilets, shops, just by adding S. So lots of information to take in there. Your turn now to practice with plural spellings. So on the Google Classroom, we have number 1, we have a plural spelling rules task. So very similar to the word classes task from last week, we'll have lots of different words in a box at the top of the document, and you need to sort out those singular words. Look at the patterns at the ends of the words and think about what rule we would need to apply. So sort them out. There's some different columns. I would copy and paste them into the different columns and then think about what rule you would need to use to turn them into a plural. The next part is to complete the plural spelling quiz, which is a multiple choice quiz and gets you to think about which is the correct spelling. So again, you're going to need to think about the word, you're going to need to think about the letters at the end of the word to help you work out what pattern to choose and what the plural should be. Other spelling rules that we might want to consider that might help you, little tips and hints here. If the word that you are looking at is only one syllable long, so only one short sound on its own, and it has a vowel, remember the A, E, I, O, U, in the middle, and a consonant at the end, what we need to do is double up the last letter if we add any endings to the word. For instance, the word fat. It's one syllable, one sound, fat. It has a vowel in the middle and it has a consonant T at the end. But if I want to, adapt that word, add any endings onto it, I need to double up on the T. So if I were to write fatter or fatten or fattening, I would need to add another T before I put the ending on the word. Again, big is an example. if I want to change it to bigger, biggest, we need to double up on that G because we have a vowel in the middle and a consonant at the end, and that word on its own is just one short sound. Sometimes we might need to drop the E on a word at the end if we are adapting the word. So for instance, if I want to add the suffix ing, ing, to turn it into a present tense verb, so something that is happening right now, well, if that word has a silent E on the end, and what we mean by that is that we can't hear the E sound when we say it out loud, then what we need to do is drop the E, get rid of it, before we add the ing. For example, write. If I want to say I am writing, I need to lose that E. It's a silent E. You can't hear me say it when I say the word write. So when we add the suffix ing, we get rid of E before we add it. Other things that we might want to consider. If I'm adding the prefix all to a word, so at the start of a word, I need to lose one of the L's. We don't keep both of them when we add the two words together. So if I wanted to say also, when I add all and so together, I take away an L. Almost. Take away an L before I add all and most together, as you can see the pattern. Other spelling rules. You may have heard this one before. I before E except after C. Well, what we mean by that is if we are going to put I and E together within a word, I tends to come before E, so it would be IE in a word, unless the I and the E come straight after the letter C, in which case we would swap the I and the E round. So if it is a C followed by an IE, well, it wouldn't be, it would be a CEI because we've got to swap them round. So examples there such as receive, receipt and sealing show that we need to have it as EI in those cases. Couple of extra things it's very good to know. Very few words in the English language actually end in the word V. Couple of examples, shiv, spiv and chav, but very few other examples. Also, where we use Q in a word, it is very, very rare to have it followed by anything other than a U. Examples of words such as queen, quick, quaint, quite show you that we tend to put Q and U together in the English language. Words that don't use it after the Q tend to have come from another language that we have adopted into our own. So it's your turn now to think about those extra hints and tips. When it comes to your assessments, your exams, you will be faced with a multiple choice spelling test. There are certain words that you will get tested on at different levels across the entry level program, and it's a good habit to get into to start recognizing those words and practicing the ones that we don't know. So to get you into the habit, we are going to have a quick spelling quiz, which is multiple choice in the same way as what you would see in an exam. So we've talked a bit about plurals and we've talked about some hints and tips that can help you with your spelling. But what do we do about those words we just don't know? And we've all got words that we don't know and that we all struggle to spell. There are a couple of different things that we could do. Sometimes you might come up with little rhymes or sayings that help you to learn spellings. We do call these mnemonics. For example, to spell the word because, sometimes you might have heard the phrase, big elephants can always understand small elephants. So the first letter of each of those words actually spells out the word because. Another example, the word necessary, if we're trying to remember how many C's and how many S's we need, think of a shirt. You have one collar on your shirt, which begins with C, and you have 2 sleeves on your shirt. So C for collar, 1 C in necessary, 2 sleeves in the word, 2 S's in the word sleeves, 2 S's in necessary. Doesn't always work for everyone, but it can help. Another one, how do we remember the difference between desert and dessert? So slight difference in the way I said that there. Remember, a desert, 1S, is sandy, 1S. Dessert has 2 S's in it, like sweet stuff. So if we remember, a desert's got to be sandy, and a dessert has got to be something that is sweet or sweet stuff. Another way to think of things, sometimes you might see words within words, such as there is a rat in the word separate. And again, little things like the word stationery has an E in it, E like envelope. So we're talking about things like notepads, pens, envelopes. E for envelopes, stationery. Whereas stationary with an A is about standing still. So again, there is a difference, even though there's just a slight difference in spelling, completely different meaning for the words. Another sort of strategy, another way to deal with those words that we don't know, we might break them down into smaller parts and possibly even pronounce them slightly differently to help us remember. A common one is the word Wednesday. When I say it quickly like that, you can't actually hear all of the little parts. Wednesday. But actually, if I break down the spelling, Wednesday. Wednesday. I've broken it down into 3 little chunks there, and it helps me to remember there's actually a D and an N in that Wednesday. Another one, sincerely, a word that is very useful for when we're writing letters and we're being formal. But actually, if we break it down, there's 2 smaller words in there. Since, rely. Since, rely. And even though I say it like that and wouldn't say it in the real world, I wouldn't say sincerely like that. If I say it out loud in a funny way, since, rely, it helps me to remember actually there's 2 words in there. A classic one that you may have come across at school, another strategy is to look at the spelling of the word, say it out loud so we get used to how it sounds, cover it up, try and remember the picture of the words in our minds, have a go at writing it and checking it. And this is a practice and repetition thing, so doing it once isn't going to help. But doing it over and over and over again with the words we really struggle with can help to put it into our long-term memory. I know we don't like to put lots of effort in sometimes, but actually it's worth doing it with your spellings because you won't always have your phone or a computer to rely on, particularly in exam situations. So when you're being tested on your spelling, it's worth putting that little bit of effort in to help you. So, your turn again. On Google Classroom, we have which strategy would you use task. And this is not a pass or fail kind of task. This is more about you thinking, what kind of strategy could I use to learn this word? So I've given you some examples of words that you need to know. You may already know them, but if they are ones that you're not quite sure about, have a think. Would I use mnemonics? Would I use chunking? Would I use look, say, cover, write, check? All sorts of different strategies, and you don't have to use the same strategy all the time. So this is all about you reflecting and thinking about how you deal with spellings that you don't know. Then I would like you to also have a look at the word list on Google Classroom. This will give you a list of all the words you would be expected to know comfortably at your level for your writing assessment. So you need to get familiar with those words and perhaps have a look through and maybe identify the ones you're not so sure on so that you've got something to start practicing. The next step, once we've completed those spelling tasks, is to have a go at the writing task for this week. In this writing task, I would expect you to proofread your work for things like punctuation and grammar, as well as making sure you've written the things they've asked you to talk about. But last but not least, make sure you are double checking the spellings. Okay? Don't rely on spell check. It gets it wrong sometimes because they are set to American grammar, not English grammar. So be aware of that and do proofread yourself. Last but not least, then, the last task that we've got on there, just to get you familiar with it, we've got some reading practice, and this is based on an example entry-level reading exam. So it will get you very familiar with the types of questions that you would actually see in a reading exam. Okay. Once you have done that, don't forget to complete your exit ticket. So have you completed all your tasks? Think about it. Have you done everything you needed to do? Have you clicked the hand in option? Because that shows your tutors that you've completed the work, and then we can mark it and give you feedback. Once you've done all of those things, complete the exit ticket for this week on your Google Classroom. Any questions, don't forget to email us or message us on the Google Classroom. Thanks. Bye.